And it's 4:30. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to this special meeting. It is March 5th. We are at the Bennington Firehouse, and we are here for a special meeting for a presentation on both Chelsea Solar and Apple Hill Solar projects. My name is Jeannie Jenkins. I have the pleasure of chairing this board, and I'll ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Nancy White.
I'm Ed Woods.
I'm Tom Haley.
I am Clark Adams.
Thank you all. We also have our town manager, Stu Hurd, with us tonight. We have Nancy Lively here taking minutes. We have Jonas Spivak, our communication coordinator, making sure that all the tech works properly. And we have Josh Boucher on Cat TV, as always. Josh, are we live tonight, or is this, okay, filming us live? Thank you very, very much. All right, so with that, what I'm going to say is we have both people in the audience and we have people on Zoom tonight. What we're going to do, first of all, is have a presentation, and I think Rodney Galton, who is an engineer with Alco Energy, will lead us off. After, Rodney, do you want to be interrupted, or would you like to do your presentation and then?
I always find it helpful to get through the presentation.
Okay.
And get questions after.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll have the presentation, and then we will take questions first from the select board. We'll take a couple questions from the audience. Try to keep your questions to 3 minutes, and then we will we'll alternate between a couple from the audience and then on Zoom. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function so we know if you have a question to ask. So we're going to do the presentation only. This is an information-only hearing, so it is to make sure that we all understand what these projects look like at this point, and we will not be taking any action. We have Planning Commission members here as well as general members of the public, and we're very appreciative of everyone who's here. So with that, Rodney, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thank you very much, and it is much appreciated to have this special meeting to go through the Chelsea Solar, Apple Hill Solar projects. As stated, I'm Rodney Galton, Senior Project Manager for Ecos Energy. With me is Mike Busher. He's Principal with TJ Boyle Associates. And I believe via Zoom, we have Michael Malone, General Counsel for my company as well. So quickly, we're going to do just a real quick breakdown on these projects. Chelsea Solar is a 2-megawatt ground-mounted project. Apple Hill is a 2-megawatt ground-mounted project. Each project is located on a portion of a 27.3-acre parcel off of Willow Road. Chelsea Solar, we have about 9.5 acres of clearing associated with that. Apple Hill, we have approximately 8.5 acres of clearing associated with that project. The overall footprints for these will take up less than 5 acres for both of these projects. This is an outline of the parcel that we have here. And this is the current site plan for these projects. Here is Chelsea Solar to the west, Apple Hill to the east. These projects, it's over 400 feet from these residents to the north here. It's over 450 feet to this residence here in the Apple Hill Homeowners Association. Access will be off of Willow Road. The clearing for the road was part of that clearing calculation. So this green line you see here is the clearing limits for these projects. And all that has been taken into consideration for that calculation. So We've been through, I'm sure we're all familiar with these specifics for these projects, but I'll go over them again. The PUC, case number 17-5024, held that Chelsea Solar Project met all the 248 criteria, including orderly development and aesthetics. The PUC did determine, because the project did share a portion of the newly built Green Mountain Power utility line extension with the Apple Hill facility, the two projects were considered a single facility. So at that point, the PUC did give us two options, to merge the two projects or demonstrate the projects do not share any infrastructure. So the site plans that are before you, these two projects do not share infrastructure. The PUC did deny Apple Hill project because of the project's purported visibility from certain off-site locations, as we're aware. This project was redesigned to avoid the same project visibility. So the project fence could be seen in leaf-off conditions, specifically winter conditions. It could be seen from the Welcome Center, and at this point, that is no longer the case. Now, this was accomplished by a couple of different ways. So we did change the overall footprint. We sort of condensed the rows a bit, and we also slid the design down the hill to take advantage of the existing vegetation that's in place. Now, we do also have a supplemental landscape plan if necessary, but that would not be to screen the solar array. That would be to screen the fence or the road, or the access road. So, environmental consultant has concluded that there will be no adverse effect, to outstanding resource waters, water pollution, headwaters, floodways, streams, shorelines, wetlands, soils, rare natural areas, rare threatened endangered species, any necessary wildlife habitat. Now, the PUC has already confirmed that the latest version of Chelsea Solar Project satisfied the applicable statutory criteria regarding aesthetics and orderly development. The Chelsea project is now smaller, more compact. So the version that you see meets these criteria. Apple Hill was specifically redesigned to limit off-site aesthetic impacts. Now, preferred site. The town plan, existing head roads are topographical features that naturally screen the entire array. We have kept the existing vegetation along the perimeter of the property to specifically meet this criteria. Now, we do have two other solar projects that did get the preferred area status for these similar conditions. These were forested sites, and we cleared except for the existing perimeter vegetation and hedgerows. So the town did label these sites as preferred because of this. So we feel that we are doing the same thing with Chelsea and Apple Hill. So these are a couple of existing conditions photos. This would be from the Apple Hill project looking south towards the Welcome Center. This This would be from the south side of the clearing of Apple Hill looking southwest. Again, south side of the clearing on Apple Hill looking southwest. And right here are the two locations that these photos were specifically taken from, right in this area. So, this is the supplemental landscape plan that we developed. And again, this would not be to screen the array. This would be to screen any visible fencing or the visible access road. The array itself is naturally screened by the existing vegetation and hedgerows. So this is existing conditions. This photo was taken from the Welcome Center. So what I'd like to do is have everybody focus right up here at the skyline here. And you'll see in the simulation, those trees disappear, right? That skyline changes right in this area. So again, you did notice the tree line change. However, the array itself is not visible. This is a simulation, obviously, because the facility isn't built. But this simulation shows that right in here, this facility is not visible. Just the tree line changed up top. This would be same thing for Chelsea Solar. This is post-construction conditions. You cannot see Chelsea Solar. Again, this is a simulation, but nothing is visible through here. This is the existing hedgerows that we are leaving in place to screen the two projects. So these are some older simulations that we still believe are relevant. And we believe they're relevant for a very specific reason. These were done back in 2017. And at that point, again, these are simulations, but you can't see the project through here. And that vegetation has only gotten taller and more dense. So again, even though these are from 2017, we believe that these are still relevant. So this is winter condition from the Welcome Center. This was summer condition. These were all simulations from eye level. This would be Route 7 North. Again, summer conditions. This is existing conditions in the summer. This is the simulation of what you'd be able to see. And again, you cannot see this project. This is winter condition. This is taken from one of the residences that's just north of the project's area up here, right in here. Again, can't see the project. Winter condition, can't see the project. This is one of the residences that's about 425 feet away, north of the project. Summer conditions, can't see the project. Winter conditions, you see the fence that was through here. This is the third residence. It's about 450 feet away, right to the northeast. Summer conditions, can't see the project. Here, you see fence. So, benefits, impacts, low burden on town resources and services, increased tax revenue, naturally screened, no noise, no waste, low traffic, no lighting, low impact, and it helps the town meet their energy goals for 2025. Again, my name, my contact information. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, so what we're going to do is start with the select board, see if there are any questions here, and then I'll move to the audience, okay? And so what I would ask is when you speak, please come to this microphone and in the middle. You may need to speak directly into it to be heard, but give your name and town of residence. So any questions from the select board? Yes, Clark.
I have a question. I understand this is an updated presentation from what you've presented in the past. Is it possible for me to get a copy of your previous presentation along with this so I can compare what changes or modifications have occurred?
I believe that information was submitted to the town previously. It was not? No. We have the previous information. If that's something that needs to be considered, we could make that available. That was, part of my public presentation, so.
Okay, well, I'm fairly new to the board and
Okay.
fairly new to town, so I appreciate if I may see those documents, please.
Could I just ask a question about, when you were talking about preferred site, I was a little confused because it sounded like you were saying that the perimeter vegetation remains as in the two projects that are already built, and therefore, and they were preferred sites, so that should make this a preferred site?
That's correct, yes. That's our,
So as opposed to being, isn't that screening rather than preferred site status?
no, because to be part of the preferred site, we need to meet a couple of criteria. It has to be naturally screened by hedgerows or by topography. So by us leaving the perimeter vegetation, that's the hedgerow that we're using as the natural screening for the projects.
Okay, so you're asserting that it should be a preferred site because
Correct.
it is naturally screened?
That's
Okay, all
correct.
right, thank you.
Yes.
And I failed to say, Jean Connor is coming. She's coming directly from work, so she will be a little late, but will be here as quickly as she can be.
So I have two questions,
Okay,
if
go
I
ahead.
could. At the beginning, you mentioned the space that each of these projects will take up, and I was confused about the number of acres. Are they 5 individual acres or 5 total acres?
Each project will take up a footprint of about 5 acres.
Okay. And you referenced the property across the street that is visible from Rice Lane, and you mentioned that existing perimeter screening and hedgerows are in place, and you made mention that it is in place on that project as well. Did I understand you correctly?
On the Stark, you're talking about the
Yeah,
Rice Lane?
that's from off of Rice Lane.
That's the Rice Lane, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the Stark.
That's very visible from Rice Lane, so I guess I'm confused.
We did, I don't believe the vegetation, the final landscaping's been put in yet because that project was complete during the winter. So so we are adding supplemental vegetation along the roadway. But along it'd be the north, the south, and the east sides, we left as much of the perimeter vegetation in place to screen it from the neighbors' properties. So, and that is, again, Stark did get a preferred area status for that project.
Right, I understand the difference.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood
Yes.
you on the existing screening remaining in place. I got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Other questions? Nancy, any questions? Tom?
Yeah, you mentioned that these two projects won't be sharing infrastructure, and infrastructure can mean different things sometimes.
Yes.
So what do you mean when you're saying that?
All of our utility pole runs have to be separated out. So we're going to have a separate utility pole run to Apple Hill, a separate utility pole run to Chelsea Solar. That's what is meant by that. So where we tie into the Green Mountain Power, wherever that final interconnection is, everything to where we tie in has to be completely separate. Apple Hill and Chelsea, they cannot share any infrastructure.
And does that include roads?
I don't believe it includes roads, no.
So it's shared infrastructure except the road?
Yeah, Michael may be able to.
Separate infrastructure except the road?
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
Michael has his hand up. He might be able to answer that better than me.
Michael, if you have your hand up to provide an answer to that, please unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
To answer the questions regarding roads specifically, that is considered by the PUC to be infrastructure, so you cannot share roads.
So there would be two roads?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Just for clarity, can we go back to the diagram so we can see where the two roads are?
Yes. So this is the public road here. This is the access road for Chelsea, which is separated out. This is the access road for Apple Hill, which is separated out.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from Select Board? All right. Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. Come on up to the microphone. State your name and your town of residence.
Yes, my name is Bill Knight, and I'm a Bennington resident. My first question is, I noticed you're going to cut probably a total of 17 acres of trees. Have you done any wind and/or noise studies, how that's going to affect, like, the Apple Hill Association residents?
I believe that stuff was done prior. Maybe Michael can answer that one as well. But we go through, we usually analyze all that stuff when we do a design. We actually have to take wind, ambient noise into consideration when we do this.
But have you done that, rather than take it into consideration?
Again, maybe Michael can answer that better than I can. He's been with this project from the beginning. I have not.
All right.
Yeah, there's wind and noise studies that were done in previous iterations of these projects.
Okay.
And what were the results? Does it affect the Apple Hill area?
Well, the short answer is no. The standard that the PUC uses specifically is no undue adverse effects. So that's kind of the standard as developers that we're shooting for. Not only was it no undue adverse effect, but there was no adverse effect from wind or from noise.
Okay, also, if you would please go back, you were talking about visibility of the solar sites from the different areas, the Welcome Center and the Monument Golf Course and all that.
Yeah, I did not mention the monument and the golf course.
Well, they'll be visible from there, though.
Just about everything is visible from the
I'm
monument.
talking about the solar project. If it was built, it would be visible from the golf course and the monument, correct?
Again, just about everything is visible. But
Well, what are you saying? You're saying
So-
everything's visible. What do you mean
So,
everything's visible?
Bill, I'm going to ask, let's let them answer, and then what I'm going to ask you to do, and I may have failed to say this, let's try and limit your questions to
Okay.
one or two, and then let's let everybody have an ability to ask questions, and then we'll come around again, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So we did evaluate visibility from the Bennington Monument. Anybody who has been up there knows that it's not just open visibility. You're looking through very narrow openings in the stone, and those stone openings do not orient towards this project. So to really get a view from the Bennington Monument, you sort of have to for us to get a view, we actually had the window open and had our camera hanging out the side. So it's not within a focused view from the monument, but that being said, if you stick your head out the window or do something that you shouldn't be doing, everything from the monument is more or less visible in the downtown Bennington area. We do have simulations from the golf course that are incorporated in the petition filing, so you can see those.
Thank you. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name's Michael Busher. I am a landscape architect, and I did the visual impact analysis for the project, or the aesthetic analysis.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Diana Leeser, and I'm a resident of Bennington. I don't have so much a question as a statement. You folks have been here at us for over 10 years. You've sued everyone, the town, Apple Hill Association. You have sued my husband and I individually. You've sued individuals in the Apple Hill Association. You have bullied and harassed us for over 10 years. Every time you make a proposal, it is denied. When are you going to stop? It has been so bad. You have been so disrespectful and so out of bounds that, and it just never stops. So, I just am agog that you are continuing this when you continue to be told no. And I would really like to thank the Select Board for upholding the town plan, for being thoughtful and taking great care and consideration over all of these years, no matter how much you have been harassed and sued.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Yes.
I feel more comfortable over here.
No, I'm sorry, you're,
I'm reading from something.
okay.
People, not other people. I'm not here to get.
Can you stop for a moment? I'm going to ask the folks from Alco if you can come over to the other,
Over microphones is not really something you should be pestering citizens over. My name is Joey Culkin. I live in Bennington. And so I think it's interesting. I think the community should know that about 100 days ago, the BCRC, the Bennington County Regional Commission, held a really important energy meeting. I think Ed Woods or Jeannie, you're on the BCRC Energy Committee, Jim Sullivan, you are. And something really important was said about Apple Hill. And so Callie Fishburne was leading the meeting, and she said, Jim, I checked the remote planning atlas a little while ago before this meeting just to confirm, and they have the constraint layers that you can turn onto the map. And so I turned on all the possible and known constraint layers for like wetlands, vernal pools, deer wintering areas. There's a whole long list of them. From what I can see, that the project location does not appear to be in any of those areas. So that seems to line up with what you found several years ago. And Jim Sullivan, who's here tonight, last night you were elected to the Select Board, congratulations. Jim Sullivan said, "Yeah, it was interesting, Callie. I remember asking at the time, before the public hearing, even when this came in. I said, we've done this analysis, and we found this block of land in the center of Bennington that was this big area of land that had outstanding access to solar energy resource and did not have any identified environmental constraints." And I said, geez, I hope you guys used our regional plan to identify this site as being good. I don't think that they had. But it was an interesting coincidence that one of the first projects that came along landed squarely in the middle of one of our prime solar sites. Apple Hill is a prime solar site. The BCRC has said this for 10, 12 years. There's a whole map to it. One of our newest select board members, who could be the chair, believes Apple Hill, this site, is perfect for all of these reasons. Not to mention, it's 3 football fields away from one of the worst Superfund sites in America. The land is so contaminated that many of you residents there can't drink water from the ground, from wells. You have to be tied into town water. You may as well drink cups of poison if you wanted to drink the water down there. That makes this contaminated land ideal for solar projects. You know, after 10 years, people change, ideas change, perspectives change. If the BCRC, who is tied to our every infrastructure and our energy and all that, if they believe, if Jim Sullivan, who worked for the BCRC for 30 years, believes that this is an ideal solar site, at some point, to quote our select board, we're supposed to listen to our experts. So Jim Sullivan is either an expert who you
I'm going to
listen
ask
or
you
he's
not to address individuals.
I'm not. I'm
Yes,
addressing
you are.
I'm addressing you.
Joey, I'm going to stop you for a moment. I'm just going to remind you that the purpose of this hearing is a presentation by real experts that work for the company that is looking to put 2 solar arrays here. You are neither an expert for this company, and I do not believe you're on the payroll. Let me know if that's
You're
wrong.
interrupting my time.
But Joey, but this is an opportunity for people to ask questions of the 2 experts, or actually 3 experts, that we have with us tonight. So if you have a question for them, please go for it. We are not making decisions tonight. This is a presentation
Okay, great.
to update.
You're
No,
cutting-
please do not. This
No,
is a
you're cutting into my
presentation to
time.
update the community, the select board, and the planning commission
Great.
on the new plans. So
what you're
I'm going to
doing
ask
now-
you, Joey, to please
No.
wrap up.
I'm going to ask you not to interrupt again.
No,
You've
I'm
done
gonna-
it- you've done
your
it for
time is almost
You've done
up.
it for 9 years. The
Your
head of the-
time is almost up, Joey,
the head
and
of
I'm,
the the head
Joey,
of the BCRC.
you're out of order. Please sit down.
No, you're out of order.
Please sit down now.
No, call the police.
We will.
Jim Sullivan supports
Stu,
the
please call the
BCRC
police.
calls this. No, Stu, I'm just.
Call them right now.
So that's my statement, and I'm going to be turning this statement, and I hope it's in the minutes.
I'm correcting the record. I am not a member of the BCRC Energy Committee. For those that are interested in committees, boards for Bennington and Bennington County, the actual information is available on both of those organization websites, the Town of Bennington and the BCRC.
And the
Right.
BCRC.
And I
supports
am
this
a
one.
member of the BCRC Energy Committee.
And
Unfortunately,
I apologize to Ed, I misspoke there, but I was right about you.
and I was not able to attend the meeting that was 100 days ago.
November 2024.
But it doesn't really matter. The point of this is to give these individuals an opportunity to share information with
And the
us.
community to know that this is a prime solar spot, according to the BCRC. Why would you try to end, why would you?
Joey,
Joey, your time
you
is
are
up.
out of
Thank you.
order.
No, Jeannie, you've been out of order
You
for
are
9 years.
out of order. Okay. Yes, please, come on up.
Hi, my name is Peter Lawrence. I'm a resident of Bennington for over 40 years, and I also live in the Apple Hill area. Some of the things I was going to ask as questions, I think Select Board has directed Mr. Adams. You asked about the difference between this and prior projects, and I was going to ask that question. You're going to look at that, because it doesn't seem to be different to me. There was a question about the screening, and I drive down Rice Lane fairly often, and that is not screened. And my understanding that to be a preferred site, it has to be natural screening, so I don't see how these are preferred sites, when the one that was considered a preferred site, because it supposedly would have natural screening, isn't screened yet, and that's to come. So that's, but you're going to address that, so I appreciate that. The other question that I do have is, in the presentation, I don't see anything about the visibility of this project from the bypass. And just the other day, I was coming over the bypass, and certainly the existing one, Stark Street, is very visible. It's striking how visible that is. So I don't see, you know, that needs to be addressed, and it hasn't been addressed in this. And again, I'm not going to get into the different claims because that's a different issue. There has been a lot of disagreement about the veracity of claims made by the developer, but that's not the purpose of this. My question is, why were there no photos, no indications of the fact that this would be very visible from the bypass?
Visibility from the bypass was absolutely addressed in the visual and the aesthetic analysis report. If you look through the photographic inventory, because it's very difficult to get photos from the bypass, we have a series of photos from the perimeter of the site looking back to illustrate the density of the vegetation during leaf-off conditions.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, when you speak, you seem to be fading in and out. I'm having a hard time hearing you, so if you could
Okay.
maybe lean closer to the
Right.
microphone.
Yes.
My name is Bruce Learman. I'm a resident of Bennington. You indicated that the size of the project has been reduced. Is the output from the solar field reduced in any way by these changes?
These were proposed as 2 megawatt facilities, and they are currently 2 megawatt facilities. They're still 2 megawatt facilities, yes.
Is that the same as the first proposal for this property? So without...
10 years ago?
Yeah.
That I cannot say for sure. I was not involved with it back then.
Okay.
But I can tell you the recent iterations were 2 megawatt facilities, and these are both proposed as 2 megawatt facilities. So.
Okay.
And if I may, historically, they were 2 megawatt facilities. The issue became, because they were adjoined to one another, that the PUC would not consider them each individually.
Thank you.
Great. Let's see. Wendy Lawrence.
Thank you. Yes, Wendy Lawrence, property owner in Apple Hill. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to start by thanking the Select Board as well. This has been a long, tedious, many-year journey. So, Stu, I think you touched on one of the things that I did want to comment on. Because these projects are abutted to each other, the PUC has denied this multiple times. These are not one small project. These are 2 projects that make one large project, which is very impactful to the state of Vermont and to the town of Bennington. The other thing is we did not see visual impacts from key areas in Bennington, and I would like to ask, why. I think that is impactful. We are a town that is very impacted by our visitors, and that brings revenue into the town. So I think there is a reason why that was left off, and I think that's important to consider. So the other thing that I would like to point out is that when and noise, Michael Malone stated that those were done, but those were done over 10 years ago. And if we're proposing a different project that's been moved, then that has impact to those wind lines and the noise impact to those. So I would expect that those studies would be redone based on the moving of these projects, which I don't think should be considered anyways based on the prior statements that I just said. Thank you. Oh, the other thing is I do think that I just drew a blank. Our homeowner president should have more than the 3 minutes to speak because he is speaking for more than just himself. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll get back around to him. Go ahead.
So I would just like to address the comment that key locations were left out of the review. Sorry about that. I just wanted to address the comment that key locations were not addressed through the visual impact analysis, which is not accurate. I would encourage you to review the visual or the aesthetic impact analysis. We use a very technologically accurate process of using a line of sight analysis to understand areas that's going to have visibility of the project. And based on that, we orient our field investigation to capture photography of the existing character and views towards the project area from those locations. And we have then produced photographic simulations from the locations with the most potential for visibility. The photograph and simulation from the Welcome Center is very representative of views from the bypass, and we've done additional views based on feedback received from the community.
Okay. Jade, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is Annette Smith with Vermonters for Clean Environment, and I'm sorry I was not able to rename myself. I usually can. I have a question, and then I have a couple of comments. Is this the same site? Are these the same site plans that were submitted to the PUC?
The Chelsea site plan is the plan that was submitted. The Apple Hill site plan varies slightly. We actually removed panels, so it's actually a little smaller than was actually submitted to the PUC.
Does that change the megawatt output of it?
It does not, no. There's still 2 megawatt facilities.
So the site plans you're presenting are not what's currently before the PUC, correct?
I believe I just said that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Annette, could you just introduce yourself again and where you're from?
Yes, my name's Annette Smith. I'm with Vermonters for a Clean Environment. I have been working with people on this project since 2014, and I have a pretty deep understanding of the various iterations and the issues and litigation and the specifics of the different proposals.
Thank you.
I also thought I would point out that I'm not sure if something's happened to the Zoom video camera, but for me it's showing up blurry. So I don't know if somebody can wipe the lens or something. So I've seen presentations to you, the Planning Commission primarily, about Chelsea Solar, and it was repeated today that had said that it was already approved on the criteria of aesthetics and orderly development or compliance with the town plan. And as you are probably aware, this is a complicated situation, but what happened was that Apple Hill Solar was first approved by the PUC, and then that was appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court remanded it back because at the time, The PUC had not evaluated the aesthetics, or the town had not evaluated the compliance with the town plan because the town had entered into a settlement agreement, and that was interpreted as supporting the project. But the Supreme Court told them to go back and actually evaluate the town plan, which they did, and that resulted in them denying the Appleville project, which was then appealed, and then it was partially upheld. The denial was upheld, but partially not, and so it was remanded again to the PUC, who affirmed that their denial based on compliance with the town plan and aesthetics stood. That was appealed to the Supreme Court, which upheld that denial. Then Chelsea Solar came along, and it was denied on the single plant issue, finding that it was essentially, with the Appleville Solar Project, a 4-megawatt plant. That was appealed to the Supreme Court, and at the oral argument, the attorney for the Appleville Homeowners Association, or the neighbors, I forget who the attorney was representing, pointed out to the Supreme Court that the same error existed in that approval, where it was based on the agreement with the town rather than the evaluation of the town plan, and asked the Supreme Court to remand it back, even if they denied it on single plan. They didn't do that, and so the Chelsea Solar project was never reviewed, this is the second time, on the compliance with the town plan, and so it gets even more complicated because the first time Chelsea Solar was denied, it was denied on aesthetics and that it was found to violate the town plan. So when you see that it's passed all of the tests of the PUC except for, that's just not an accurate statement, and I'm sorry it takes so long to explain it, but this is all way too complicated. I also would like to make one observation about what was just said about those constraint maps and the Energy Committee and BCRC. I have evaluated many solar projects and sites using those constraint maps. And for instance, if you're familiar with the absolutely extraordinary Shaftesbury solar site, if you run that same evaluation, it shows up as not having constraints, but it also has other issues, such as whether or not it complies with certain things. And so those constraint maps, I found are actually inaccurate. I have a meadow that is really very acid and grows lichens well, but it's shown as prime ag soil on those maps. It shows that a north-facing forested site that I have on my property is a solar resource. So really all those maps are showing is that the sun is shining, but when it comes to evaluating the environmental issues, they are very limited in their availability. And I think that that's all I have to say at the moment. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
I would ask that Michael Malone be allowed to address any of those legal issues that were brought up.
Yes, please, Michael.
Hi, thanks. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the legal nuances. I don't think it's really important for our purposes. I do want to address Wendy's question regarding wind and noise and those studies being stale. And this also kind of ties into the question related to the output of these facilities being the same as they were 10 years ago, being 2 megawatts each. The manner in which we're able to maintain that output is simply improvements in technology as the panels become more efficient over time. So I don't know if you all noticed in the simulations towards the end of Rodney's presentation, you could see from those 2018 sims that the project site plan, the footprint of the panels, was actually much larger back then. So much larger, and obviously being much larger, in theory more impactful as well. So even though those are older pictures, older sims, we thought it was still useful to present because at the time, those footprints were just a lot larger. And now, fast forward to today, it's a much smaller footprint. So obviously, smaller footprint, less impactful. And you don't get increased noise and increased wind from making the project smaller. So it's a long-winded way of answering Wendy's question. We don't believe that those studies that were done way back when are stale. We don't have any intent on updating them. It's just simply not necessary. And then I wanted to clarify Annette's question about what's the current site plans before the PUC, because it sounded like there might be some confusion over that as well. The Chelsea site plan is exactly the same as the one that's currently pending. The Apple Hill site plan, which is the newer, the more recently filed of the two facilities, it is the same except that we took out some of the panels. So again, it's a smaller version of what is currently before the PUC. If we were to ever change that in the future, we would have to go through a substantive change analysis before the PUC, which in essence is similar to refiling. We would have to send out notices to all the interested parties, along with updated testimony reflecting that change. Now, obviously, when you make a project smaller, but with the same output, it's not really a substantive change. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, Michael misspoke. Those SIMs were actually from 2017, not 2018. So the presentation, they are dated 2017, not 2018. I just want to eliminate any confusion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone present in the room that wants to ask? Yes, please come up.
Hi, this is Neil Hogan from Bennington. I have some questions. What does 2 megawatts of power service? How many households?
I do not have that information in front of me. I do not.
It's your project.
Yep, and I do not have that information in front of me.
This might be for both of you. The tax revenue was brought up. How much tax revenue do you expect to bring in, and what does the board want to do with it? I hope it's to lower our tax rate.
I don't know anything about the taxes. I can, again, bring Michael in to answer that. He might have some more information on that. But I do not have that information as far as the taxes to the town.
It was on your, I'm sorry, it was on your slide.
Yes, it was.
So I would expect that you would have some information about it.
I do not have the exact.
Rodney, we need you to speak directly into the mic because you can't be picked up by Cat TV without it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sorry about that. I do not have that information in front of me. I don't know exactly what, how much money, how much tax revenue is going to go to the town.
When will you be able to provide that?
I don't know. I'd have to consult with my team.
I don't know. Okay. What's the life expectancy of the project, and what's the disposition of the panels?
The life expectancy for these projects are typically 25 to 30 years. And what do you mean by disposition of the panels?
So when they're used up, they don't produce power anymore? What happens to them? Where do they go?
Typically, they go to a recycler, and they get refitted and whatnot.
And then would that come back here, or would that be done?
Once we give them to a recycler, it's up to them what they do with those panels.
Okay.
But Neil, are you asking, does the project end at 25 years?
Or 30? Or
Yeah.
Is it
So
go
I think
on?
he's asking, do you just junk it all and then you're done with that land, or will you keep the project going?
So I believe most of our projects do have a decommissioning portion of that, which is where we remove the infrastructure from the site and bring it back as close to existing as we, or pre-construction as we can get it.
Okay, thank you. One more. So the views from the golf course, the monument, the height of elevation on Route 287, the bypass, why weren't there slides from there? Because that's obviously you can see that, especially coming over 287. You see the whole valley of Bennington. And, you know, that's one of the gateways to Vermont.
Just let me correct the record here. It's Route 279 for those that are out of town and may not be familiar. Yep, for the record, thank you.
It's one of the gateways to Vermont, and you know, you see the monument, and then you see solar fields, and I just don't think it's a good view.
Again, I would direct you to look at the aesthetic analysis report. All those views are covered in it. The presentation tonight is an overview and was focused on locations that were previously brought up by the town.
So why weren't there slides, 3 slides, to your presentation tonight? Would that have been possible?
I would, again, encourage you to look at the full review.
Yeah.
I was not responsible for putting down the presentation tonight. Again, it's an overview. It's not any intention to avoid any type of view.
I think, yeah, the plan is to catch us all up to date, but I think because all of us came in to this at different times, we all have different sort of foundational bases.
Yeah, that's understandable, but like Michael said, the full report is available for viewing.
Where do I view that, Jeannie? Do you know? How would I go online to find that?
You can go to the EPUC website. The easiest way is search under the case number. And all documentation, the entire case documentation for each project is available for viewing there.
Okay, I want to make a statement. So just because this seems to be or may be a so-called perfect site, it doesn't mean it has to be built there.
Thank you. Do you want to can you go back and show us the case number, so if someone wants to look it up? I think it was on one of your slides.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Awesome. Mary, you're up next. Okay. What is the case? What is it? It's 17-5024, is that what it is?
Yes. Apple Hill.
Is that a different case number?
One was for Chelsea, one is for Apple Hill.
Okay, so the Chelsea was 17-5024.
Yes.
And Apple Hill is 8454. Okay. Representative Morrissey.
Mary Morrissey from Bennington. I've been on this project with all the other folks involved for over 10 years. At the last meeting, you have the same pictures that you had, which are simulations. Simulations are simulations that show what you want to have people see. I asked for actual pictures. This project has been going on for 10 years. You could have gotten actual pictures with leaves off the trees multiple times throughout this process. You have chosen not to do that and give simulations of what you want the project to appear to be. I asked it how many months ago you were here presenting. We got the same pictures again. When we ask these questions, we're asking it for the love of our community and region, to preserve what we've had here with our landscape. I'm one of the folks that was actually sued by this company because I asked questions a number of years ago. This has been a very challenging process. The project has lost at the puck level as well as the Supreme Court multiple times. How many more times do we have to go through this and not be respected to even be given the information we've requested? It's really very extremely disappointing, and really almost not wanting us to be wanting to do business with you because of those reasons. But that's not the reason we're doing. All of us in this room are for good projects that will enhance our energy, but we keep getting the same projects back and back, a little bit different every time, so it appears to be different. It's not. And I thank the Select Board for taking this up.
Thank you, Mary. Paul King from Zoom.
Can I respond to that, please?
Oh, please. Okay, Paul, in a moment.
I just, again, want to direct everybody to the aesthetic analysis for both of these projects where simulations are provided, not the representations that were shown tonight. They are individual simulations. They are on leaf off. They're photographic simulations. And the reason why the illustration, I will call it, was shown tonight is because none of the actual photo simulations, they're done individually of each project. There was a request to prepare one that combined both projects together, but it was at a very last minute, and we did not have the time to provide combination for this particular meeting. But leaf-off photographic simulations are included with the aesthetic analysis for both of these projects.
A moment. Paul, so everyone gets to speak once before anyone speaks a second time. Sorry, Mary. Paul King. Oh, Ed. Well, let Paul and then Ed. Yeah, Paul and then Clark.
Hello, I'm Paul King. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So I'm a resident from Apple Hill Road in Bennington and actually an adjoining property owner to the proposed development. A number of my neighbors have spoken tonight and their questions would suggest, if not said it directly, that they're not in favor of this development proceeding. I just want to state that that is not a uniform view of all residents on Apple Hill. I'm personally in favor of it moving forward, and a number of my neighbors came with me to the last planning meeting. I don't know if they're there this evening, but they are equally in favor of this development proceeding. So I just want the Select Board to know that yes, this is a community that's got different points of view, but it's not a uniform view, and there are people living on Apple Hill that would very much like to see this development proceed.
Thank you for that.
It's really a statement rather than a question.
Yep.
Don't really have any questions for the developer other than to say that the questions I have had in the past, they've been able to satisfy me in terms of making changes to the proposed development, which we're all witnessing this evening. These are revised proposals from those that were submitted many times in the past, and, you know, in my view, meet the criteria.
Thank you. All right, so again, what we're doing is just trying to getting information tonight. And I do think if there are any specific pieces of information that some things have been noted as possibly needed for the Planning Commission to look at this further and for the community to look at it further. If there are other things that we should be asking for, let's do that, because I think we have folks here now and we want them to know what we need to make good decisions. Clark and then Jackie.
Right. The segue into what Jeannie just said, and I want to reinforce Representative Morrissey's request, along with my previous request for documentation. Can we get physical photographs of these terrain features that are being discussed here? As you know, I think she's quite accurate that simulations are just that. I'd really like to see real photographs of the lay of the land and how this project would impact on the area, please.
So if you review the aesthetic impact analysis, there are several attachments to that. One's a photographic inventory. It's a catalog of all the locations inventoried throughout Bennington that were identified as the locations with the highest potential for views of both of these projects. Those viewpoint locations are coordinated with GIS maps that include the viewshed analysis, and a viewshed analysis is a line of sight methodology that looks to understand where you can see a given object from another location in the town. Based on that, we created photographic simulations primarily on the Chelsea site, which is again representative of the Apple Hill site, of certain locations throughout the Bennington area, throughout the study area, that either we felt had the greatest potential for impacts or that were requested through the process over the last several years. So I'm not totally understanding what the request is, or if that addresses your question.
Okay, what I'm interested in, along with Representative Morrissey, I'd like to see a picture. Simulations and what we think it should or could look like. I saw how you're at the Welcome Center from this angle. Here's what the simulation shows. I would like to see a photograph in both winter and foliage season of that area, what you can see in real time, not what the computer tells you you may or should see, but what is actually there.
Can you put the presentation, please?
So again, there is a full inventory of actual photographs.
I understand what you're saying. What I'm interested in, maybe I'm not being quite clear, is I saw a photograph or a simulation that's standing at this point at the Welcome Center. Here's what you see.
So this is an actual photograph.
Okay.
That is an actual photograph.
And you're saying the simulations?
This is existing conditions.
All right.
This is how it exists, okay? The next one you see here is a simulation, right? It's a photographic simulation after it's post-construction, because we haven't cut trees, we haven't constructed the solar. I don't know if anybody can hear me. I don't know. So we haven't constructed anything here. So we cannot give you a photo of what this actually looks like, right? All we can do is do a photographic simulation based on the trees, the existing photo here, and based on topography and everything else. So when you, again, that's why I pointed out here, if you watch the tree line, it changes.
And it changes because of your simulation, or changes because of the weather? I'm assuming that's in the fall or winter. There's no.
So this would be a post-construction simulation.
So I'll tell you how we proceed with our photographic simulations. So we conduct field inventory using the aforementioned process to identify locations with the highest potential for visibility. We also look at the locations that have the most sensitivity. So a welcome center is going to have extremely high sensitivity because of the cultural importance of it. The simulation is created by replicating the exact same view in a 3D animated environment in a computer. We take certain elements like landform, light poles, edge of pavement, the guardrail, and we incorporate those into the 3D computer model so we can register the two images together. Then we overlap them and we illustrate the components that are going to be altered as a result of the project. So for this particular project, we had to simulate things like canopy level. And what Rodney is pointing to you is a change in the canopy level. So we have 3D modeled elements that are telling us how it's going to be changed or altered as a result of the project. It's a well-documented procedure. We do it for local projects such as this, and we do it for the federal government for much, much higher profile projects. And this is a strong basis of what my company does, and we are known nationally for our work.
Now, I know you mentioned that you did some work from the monument. Are those pictures/simulations available in this packet too?
There is photos from the monument, but not photographic simulations, just the original photography.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, okay. Jackie, hang on a second.
I'll wait. I'll wait.
Okay, Jackie, then Jean.
Hi, Jackie Matz, Bennington. You had mentioned that as two separate projects, the two projects don't share infrastructure. I'm not sure if sort of the natural screening is considered part of that infrastructure, if that's some different requirement. And I didn't think to look on the slide when it was up, but I was wondering if you were maintaining some of that natural screening between the two project sites.
Okay. Could you bring up my presentation again? Thank you. So what we have here, this green line that goes around the outside here, that would be the clearing limits. And we do share clearing limits between the two projects. We are not keeping any vegetation in between Chelsea Solar and Apple Hill Solar. This would be fence through here, open, and then a fence put through here to separate the projects out.
Thank you.
First of all, I apologize for being late. I missed the presentation. How many slides did you actually present tonight?
Total, I think it's 33.
33, okay.
I think.
And is a lot of what people saw, did it come from the website that you keep telling people to go check it out on? Are they on?
The EPUC website.
Wherever all this information is.
These slides aren't, this is strictly for a presentation,
Okay.
right? There's similar information in those reports.
Okay. I guess I would just like to pass on how it feels sitting here, and I can even imagine how it must feel sitting there. You keep telling everyone to go to the website and look at their report. I feel like that's very disrespectful of people that have spent their time to come here and not have what we need to really understand what this project entails. I just find that really disrespectful.
Is there anyone that hasn't spoken? Yeah, you haven't spoken, right? Come on up.
My name's Carol Frome.
Oh, come up
I'm
to,
sorry.
no. Come up and lift the microphone so you don't have to.
My name's Carol Frome.
Thank you.
I live in Apple Hill. And my husband and I both support the project. We have always supported solar. We have solar on our house. We also know that there are numerous people other than ourselves that support the project. I'm not sure why they're not here, but I can't speak for them. As for being disrespectful, I haven't seen that. I haven't even seen people being rude to each other. Unless you carry in a tome and you expect everybody to be able to sit here and read it at a meeting, it's not being disrespectful. They're doing their best to give you what they have and what they know. You can get more information. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, Nancy.
Well, like Clark, because I've only been on the board for a year, I will be requesting everything that the Select Board has received in the past. And who will provide that? Will it be the board? Will it be town officials?
I don't know. I suspect, I think we are making a request maybe of ALCO to provide.
We can provide everything that's been submitted to the PUC, because that's public record, so.
And this would be what the Select Board received, I guess, several years ago when it came before the board?
Well, applications have been updated since, but we can provide the information that's currently in front of the PUC as part of the public record.
I would just like to be able to see what the board and the public heard before to compare it to what there is now.
Okay.
That's a common theme.
Yeah, so I think if you could provide the information from all the various filings over the years, that would be great. So I don't know, that's 10, 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, that's a lot of information. Okay, wait a minute, Dan's coming up. Let's
I'm
see
not sure anybody has that type of time.
Yeah, I think that what you're asking for is not reasonable because you won't even have the time to look at it. I think what's important, may I suggest, is what's changed so that we understand there was a decision made previously, why should there be there were recommendations made previously, why should those recommendations be changed? That's something I'm sure you could do, say, hey, this used to be the footprint, here's the footprint now, this used to be how we've screened it, this is how it's screened now. I think that's what you folks want, so you can make a determination regarding what your recommendations are, because this project has changed, as you've mentioned. So I don't think anybody here on this board or anybody in this audience wants to read thousands of pages of irrelevant information that has nothing to do with the current project.
I agree with Dan, and I think that addresses a number of concerns the way that I've understood them tonight.
Right, and I think that would also help, so what's changed, but also when you talk about aesthetics, and that those studies have not changed, or wind or noise, those have not changed. It would be helpful to have that so that it feels like there's a complete package of information, because I think we're all struggling. The purpose of this is to understand what's changed from the past, and I think we're all struggling in our own ways to understand that clearly.
If you could bring up my presentation, I can quickly go over the difference from the previous site plans.
Okay.
So Chelsea Solar was previously located further north here, okay? But what that entailed was a significant cut in the grade, approximately 19 feet. And feedback from the abutters, the neighbors, they requested that we not go that route, okay? So what we did was we just slid this down to the south while still maintaining that vegetation around to give this the natural screening, okay? So Apple Hill, what's different, and the reason why it's not considered a substantive change is what's in front of the PUC is actually, we have panels shown just in this little corner. So this would be Apple Hill rather than Chelsea, right? So this would be squared off.
Can you, I thought Chelsea is the one on the left, and so you're sort of going back and forth, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So this is Apple Hill, and what's in front of the PUC is a site plan that shows panels associated with Apple Hill in this area, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't, because it's Chelsea.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So what we did was we reduced the footprint of Apple Hill by removing the panels that were in this area. After we slid Chelsea down, we removed the panels that were associated with Apple Hill from this area, reducing the footprint of Apple Hill. If that clarifies things.
Yes.
Okay. And again, because it's a smaller footprint, it would not be considered a substantial change. It's the same output, just on a smaller footprint.
That's really helpful, thank you.
Jeannie?
Yeah.
And I'll ask Dan to do this. Dan, could you tell us what the town plan now says about how this might achieve a preferred site determination?
So they have talked about it, and unless I'm mistaken, this sole reason the sole basis that you're seeking preferred area status on is that it's naturally screened by existing hedgerows or topography.
And so that's what the town plan now requires?
That's what the town plan now says. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about a lot of different issues, but that is the only issue, really the main relevant issue before the board regarding recommendations is, does it comply with the town plan? That's their assertion that it does because of the natural screening.
Right, and also because, again, we use the same sort of design criteria for previously approved projects for the preferred area, the Stark Warner projects. So we're using that same sort of natural screening determination for Chelsea and Apple Hill.
Yeah.
So I guess I would caution you guys from using those as examples because those were not fully vetted. Those were part of a settlement agreement. So I don't think we're comparing apples to oranges. I'm not arguing one way or the other, but I don't think that helps these folks because they didn't make that recommendation.
Okay. Yes, Nancy.
When you're talking about natural screening, I think a lot of people were surprised last spring by the amount of trees that were removed on Upper Rice Lane near Harwood Hill. Was that agreed to ahead of time, and it's just people didn't know those trees were going to be removed?
Yeah, that was part of the approval from the PUC. We basically took that forested lot, cleared it for our solar project.
And that you had approval to do that. I guess the
Yes.
public didn't realize it.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did I read a year and a half ago that in addition to Stark, and what's the name, and Warner, were you asking for a third site, and what happened with that?
I'm not sure the third site. I'm not sure what the third site would be.
I thought I read there was Stark and there was Warner, and it was being asked for a third site, and I didn't know if the PUC was saying it was too close to, I don't know what the lower site is called, if that's Stark or Warner.
Should we?
Okay.
So let's ask Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Let's ask Mike.
Michael, if you can address that question.
Sure. So there's 3 facilities across Route 7 to the west, 2 of which are already built and operating. Battle Creek, I think, was built 2018, 2019. Stark was just recently completed. Warner is still going through the PUC.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So Battle Creek has been in existence for quite a while at this point.
And Battle Creek is the one that's behind Home Depot.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I have a follow-up if Nancy's done. Are you set,
Okay.
Nance? So my question is a follow-up to hers. Can we use what we experience in the, and I'm asking this again, can we use the experience that we have on the Rice Lane projects as an example of what natural screening provides?
It's quite different. Stark is a very flat site. Chelsea and Apple Hill, there's quite a bit of topography change there. So we're actually using the topography and the existing vegetation to screen those projects. Stark is a relatively flat site, so it is difficult to compare those 2 sites apples to apples.
So are you suggesting that Stark is better screened than these projects will be?
No, because its location to Rice Lane, it's very close to Rice Lane. Stark would have the worst.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have the worst views.
So for lack of better terms, that's sort of a worst case scenario.
That's worst case scenario, correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great. Is there anyone who has not asked a question or made a comment that would like to do so? Otherwise, we'll start on round 2. Yes, Jim.
My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm not going to address any of the comments that included my reference to my name earlier. That's not why we're here. I just wanted to let you know that the Regional Energy Committee, of which I'm a member and there are other members here, did do a comprehensive review of this project in previous iterations in the past in the context of consistency with the regional plan, not the town plan, but the regional plan. And if at some point the board or the planning commission or some other entity wants information from the Regional Energy Committee, you should contact the BCRC, probably Kelly Fishburne, to get information from them. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're starting round two.
Hello, I'm still Peter Lawrence, still a resident of Bennington, and I apologize, I probably should have thought of this when I was speaking before. I appreciate all the questions that are being asked by the different select board members. Ed and Tom, I'm not sure which one of you asked about the shared driveway and that's shared infrastructure, but if you look at the diagram, that is still shared. They're not separate, but I have two real questions. One is, there's a lot of representations that are being made, clearly by the developer, representations being made by members of the public. I strongly urge the select board to talk to your own attorney, who's been very involved in this, as to what representations are valid, which ones are distortions of the law and what's going on, and to get a clarification as to these different things, such as whether that shared roadway qualifies as shared infrastructure or not. This is also another legal question. It's my understanding that the law requires part of the plan to require a remediation plan. In other words, after the project has run its useful life, that the property has to be restored to its prior condition as much as possible. I don't see any reference to how that's going to be done. I also don't see how that physically can be done when you're clear-cutting a forest. Again, don't take my representation about that. Check with your lawyer about whether that is accurate and what's required for the remediation at the end of the project. But also, and I know this from prior things around the whole town, particularly Superfund sites, and when they're cleaned up, funds have to be set aside to satisfy that remediation. I don't see anything in this plan saying that there's any money being set aside to cover the future costs of that remediation. You clearly have small LLCs that can easily go bankrupt, and then the town is left. Either the property does not get remediated, or the town has to do it on its dime. That needs to be addressed. I don't see that being addressed. I'm sure Mr. Malone will have some comments about that, but I also strongly urge that this is something that the town get its own advice from its own attorney on. And hopefully I haven't forgotten anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Can I speak to that?
Can you hold it? Because Bill's at the microphone,
Yeah, I hate
and
to
then
give it up, you know.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm Bill Knight. I'm actually president of the Apple Hill Homeowner Association, and I've been president for 25 years. It's a lovely job. There's not a long line for that job, by the way. I just want to, a couple people have made the statement there are numerous people in Apple Hill who are supporting this project, which is absolutely not true. I could probably, almost from memory, tell you everybody's phone number, emails, because I'm so involved in that small community. I know there's one person who's tried to drum up support for this project. I think there's 4 total, and they're all brand new people who've only been in the project, in our development, about 3-4 years at the most. They have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know what we've gone through for all these 13 years. It's been very annoying for all of us to put up with that, and I find it very disrespectful for them to think they know what's good for us. These people are also the people who never come to our meetings, never take part in any parties. They never take part in cleanup day. If they want to find out what's going on, maybe they should come to our meetings. We're going to have our yearly meeting in about 10 days. So maybe if they want to find out what's really going on, they could come to the meeting. But numerous is not the word of the people in Apple Hill who's supporting this project. 4 out of 35 homes is not numerous.
Thanks. I want to remind us one more time that the reason we're here is to get as much information as we can. This project's been going on a long time. There are a lot of emotions we all have about it as a result. But I want to make sure that we get as much information as we can tonight. So to that, Michael, I'm going to ask you, I think you were going to respond to the previous question.
Yeah, I'm gonna respond to 4 different things that I've heard over the last little bit. One gentleman had a question as to the output of the facilities and how many homes would be powered by that. I did some digging and some old filings to find the answer for him. Each project, Chelsea and Apple Hill, would generate enough electricity to power approximately 500 homes. So that's per project. And that gentleman also had a question as to taxes. We obviously pay property taxes. But in addition to that, in Vermont, solar facilities above a certain size are required to pay annually into the education fund. I think it's $4 per kilowatt on the nameplate capacity. So in addition to property taxes, you have money going to the education fund. The second point I wanted to address, there seems to be a lot of questions and requests related to getting materials for older iterations of the project to highlight, I guess, changes that have been made. And so that there were several different iterations. So it would be confusing, I think, to delve into all of them. I will say that one of the big changes, and we've mentioned it repeatedly throughout the night, is not necessarily with respect to the project, which has changed, but the town plan has changed as well, meaning that the energy amendment was introduced, which introduced this concept of a preferred site. So that's one of the big changes to focus on as well, not just the condensing of the footprint, not just the changes like the change to the fencing that was eliminated to get rid of the visibility from the Welcome Center. The big change from our perspective has been this introduction of the preferred site concept. And that brings me to the third point. Dan Monks said that we shouldn't be really relying on what was done with respect to the preferred sites at Stark and Warner across Route 7 because they were done as part of a settlement agreement. I strongly disagree with that statement. You would have to look at the terms of that settlement agreement to really judge for yourself how it was done. But long story short, we hired an independent aesthetics consultant to make that.
Michael, did we lose you?
Looks like we did.
All right. When he reconnects, reconnects, we'll put him back on unless, John, should we go to another question or is this quick?
I'm sorry, can you not hear me anymore?
Oh, now we can hear you. Yeah, we lost you.
At what point did you lose me?
Stark and Warner settlement agreement.
The independent aesthetics consultant.
Yeah, so Mr. Monks' point was we shouldn't be looking at that because it was part of the settlement agreement. That's silly. That settlement agreement specifically had an independent aesthetics consultant come in and make that determination. And what we're doing here is no different. Those were forested sites that were cleared except for the perimeter, and that's exactly what we're doing here. And the last point, to just address what Peter Lawrence was saying regarding the shared roads, that is a very legally specific question, but he's wrong. Public roads are not shared infrastructure. If they were, then projects all over Vermont would be considered a single plant because they share public roads. Lastly, he had a question about the decommissioning. It's a state requirement. The PUC requires you to either put a cash deposit or a letter of credit in place to satisfy the decommissioning obligations. And in addition to cash, you have to have a real plan. And that's for every single solar facility that's been built in Vermont over a certain size. And those, again, are all available on EPUC. And I know you dislike hearing that, but when we have to give a presentation on something that is literally thousands of pages of testimony, we have to make the judgment call at some point as to what you want to hear and what is important. So to say it's disrespectful that we don't have everything in front of you is a little bit insulting.
Thank you, Michael. Ed.
Mr. Malone, I think this is for you. Nice to meet you virtually. Ed Woods here. I'm trying to understand the first comment that you made in that last, or the first explanation in that last grouping, and I appreciate that. Are you suggesting that the current versions of these plans are in keeping with the current town plan and had not been in the 2018 prior plan? That would be very helpful to know if in your opinion that was the goal and that was in your opinion accomplished.
So I think I understand your question. Once the town plan amendment came out, the energy amendment, which introduced the concept of preferred solar sites, that was the goal, right? To screen the array using topography or existing hedgerows. That's what we aimed for with Stark and Warner, and that's where we ended up on that through the independent consultant coming in and telling us that we satisfied that criteria. That is the same thing that we were shooting for with Chelsea and Apple Hill this go-round, and that's what's in our testimony. Essentially doing the same exact thing that we did at Stark and Warner, clearing the inside of the project footprint, but leaving, in some places, hundreds of feet of understory and vegetation so that you can't see it.
So, thank you. So I think I'm understanding that the revisions in the opinion of Apple Hill and Chelsea Solar Developers, the opinion is that that town plan that is currently in effect with the energy update from 2018 is met by this. And Rodney's shaking his head yes, and so I appreciate that. I think I feel better understanding that now. Thank you.
Could you bring up the presentation again? I'll just bring up the site plan again, so everybody can clearly see what we're talking about as far as leaving vegetation and hedgerows. Again, this green line is the clearing limit. We have hundreds of feet of vegetation here, here, here. This whole section is vegetated. This part of the state right-of-way is vegetated. So again, not only are we just leaving vegetation on the outside, but there is, our abutters have a lot of vegetation as well that screen this project. Not that we're relying on that. We're confident that what we're leaving in place here will screen this project.
I just want to thank you for that. As a newcomer, at least to this level of detail, that is much more clear to me now after understanding that. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Wait a moment. Is there anyone else? Yes, behind you, Peter, not you. Yep. Peter, so we haven't gone to round 3 yet, so.
Shirley Adams, Bennington. I'm relatively new to learning about this project, so maybe this information has been covered at some point in the history of it, but why is it 2 projects? And should it still be 2 projects, considering you've condensed it? Is there some advantage to you for making it 2 projects legally? Just could you explain that a little bit? Would it be different if it were 1 project?
Michael, would you like to address the legal aspect of that?
Sure. Each project originally was awarded through a RFP that the state implements for a power purchase agreement, and that's the reason why there are 2 projects. They're separate power purchase agreements with the state's agent on each of the projects. The Apple Hill facility currently doesn't have one anymore through that program. There is another state program that we'll go through to sell the power. But yeah, to answer your question, it relates to the facility's offtake. And the second part of your question, I think, was if they were 1 project, would it be any different? Yes, there would be shared infrastructure. It would be 1 project. There wouldn't be duplicative access roads or duplicative points of interconnection. But as far as, aesthetic or environmental impact or any of the other 248 criteria, the analysis really stays the same.
Great. Anyone else that hasn't spoken a second time, a first or a second time? I'm sorry. No. Yeah. And so the audience, and then I'll go to Annette. Jade Annette.
Yes, I wanted to give you the case numbers for EPUC because the numbers that you looked at were old cases. But I also wanted to, the topic of Warner Solar came up, and Mr. Malone said that that's currently before the PUC. Warner Solar was denied by the PUC as a single plant with another of those 2 projects. And that case is under appeal by the Malones to the Vermont Supreme Court. There are also 2 appeals to the Vermont Supreme Court about the standard offer contract for Apple Hill Solar. And there are 2 cases, one involving Chelsea Solar and one involving the Warner Solar project that are in Superior Court. So the correct case numbers for the current cases, Chelsea Solar's case number is 23-0249. And you just go to epuc.vermont.gov and click on search by case number and just type that in and it will take you to the case. And if you look at pre-filed testimony, you can find all the current documents for that. Apple Hill Solar is case number 24-3517. And a lot of older case files have been loaded into some of these cases. The other case that you were told, 175024, that was the second iteration of Chelsea Solar, which the PUC renamed Willow Road Solar. And the first case was 8302, and it was denied on aesthetics and not complying with the town plan. And the other case, Apple Hill Solar, was 8454, and it eventually was also denied on the aesthetics and compliance with the town plan. Now, those 4-digit numbers are what are called legacy cases, and they came before EPUC was put in place, and so it's You won't find all of the documents posted the way you will the ones that start with a year, 23 or 24. But if you click on commission-issued documents, if you click on that tab, you can read the final decisions of the PUC, and you read the final order, and that will give you a lot of the case history if you're interested in that. And the newer cases that I told you about are the ones where you can find the aesthetics assessments of the applicant. Apple Hill Solar has not had anything other than the applicant's information put in. Chelsea Solar also has been very slow, but you will find some other information. And the only other thing I'd like to say is that it is very common in dealing with this particular applicant that people are offered things in order to speak in favor of projects. And so there may be a factor going on with this project site and what you're hearing today. So just keep that in mind. The basic project is still on the same hillside, still in the same areas that if you read the decisions of the PUC that denied it, they're very well articulated and bring in the reasons it was denied on the town plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Diana.
Hello, it's Diana Leeser again. Wondering if I should have brought this up, but certainly what Annette Smith just said is true. There has been at least one offer for financial remuneration for those folks if they will sign off on the plan.
Thanks. I'm just going to remind us one more time, we're here to hear information from ALCO or ECOS, there are a couple names going, so that we are getting expert information. So there is a lot of history, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in this room that can fill us all in on various aspects of it. But tonight, what we are doing is trying to get as much information as we can so we understand what has changed in this project so that we can make educated decisions. And we're making no decisions tonight. Anyone that hasn't spoken a first or a second time, right? We're not into 3 yet. We are into 3?
Mr. Lawrence.
Oh, you would be 3. Okay, come on up. Peter, you're...
Again, I'm Peter Lawrence, still Bennington, and I'm only doing this because Mr. Malone made a reference to me and said I was completely wrong. Could you please put up the diagram, the plan?
The site plan?
Site plan. Yeah, instead of shouting. Okay. Could you show with your pointer where the boundary lines is?
Mr. Lawrence, we need you to speak directly into the mic, or we can't pick you up. I apologize.
It sounds really loud to me. Could you point out the boundary line of the property?
This dashed line that goes around.
Okay. Just as I expected. Now, Mr. Malone said I was completely wrong. I can certainly argue that where you see the road entering there, that's at the bottom on the property line is shared. Now, I can argue that. Mr. Malone can argue that's not shared. This is where your attorney, the town's attorney, needs to clarify that, because it certainly looks to me like that still is shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, did you want to get up?
I understand the passion around that issue, but that's not our issue. That's a PUC issue.
Yeah.
So it really is not relevant what our attorney thinks. It's what the PUC thinks. And so I would just say, let's focus on the aesthetics and the town plan.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Joey.
Joey Culkin, Bennington. So I want to apologize. I misspoke about Ed's role on the BCRC board, but I did get Jean's you're on that committee, so.
Jeannie is, Jean is not. Yeah.
Jeannie?
Yeah.
On the Energy Committee. Anyway, Ed is on a different BCRC committee. You're on, that's what you said? It doesn't matter. So I have a question. Of course, you said I misspoke, so I'm clarifying. I have a question for Mr. Malone, if you can answer this. This is really about aesthetics. So everyone's talking about O from the monument, O from the golf course. If you go to Lookout Point on Mount Anthony, you can see the entire valley, every blade of grass, everything. Right now, you can see the solar array behind Home Depot. And if you look a little bit east, you can see the solar array at Manili Park. And where the new Apple Hill project would be, would just form a part of that arc. It wouldn't be on some faraway hill. Anyone at Lookout Point on Mount Anthony who is standing there appreciating all that we have in Vermont isn't going to go, oh my God, there's a third solar array there. I hate Vermont. How ugly. This is just the worst of the worst. Right now from Mount Anthony, you can see 2 solar projects. This third one would be right in the middle, form a little bit of an arc. They've made it smaller. And so I guess I'd ask Mr. Malone, can you sort of follow up on that aesthetic from Mount Anthony? If you can. If not, I understand. But we're leaving out a really important piece of the aesthetics here. You can't really see it from Mount Anthony. You can't really see it from the monument, but you can see it from our new Lookout Point. And that means something, I guess, in the greater context of what this smaller solar array would mean for aesthetics, where you can already see 2 other solar projects. And I don't think there's ever been a single letter to the editor or someone come up here to say, oh my God, I was at Lookout Point and all you see is solar panels. Vermont is ruined. So I don't know if you can address that, Mr. Malone, in terms of the Lookout Point aspect of the aesthetics, and if not, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joey.
I'll just respond briefly. It does sound like Mr. Culkin has actually read our testimony in Apple Hill, where we include a transcript from the recent BCRC Energy meeting where Jim Sullivan talks about that exact same point that Joey just made. It's all about context. Visibility is a tricky thing. And the law in Vermont doesn't require that projects like this be invisible. That's never been the law. It really is about context. And if you're up in elevated places throughout Bennington, of course you're going to see it. But you're also going to see a Home Depot. You're also going to see a highway interchange. You're also going to see other solar. And from that viewpoint, this is simply not impactful. And don't take my word for it. Take your new select board member's word for it. Go and read that transcript. It's part of our filing in the Apple Hill case.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak? You can be rounds 1, 2, or 3 at this point.
Not 4.
Not 4 yet. All right, 4. Anybody need 4? No, so are there any other questions, or are there any other kinds of materials that would be helpful for us all to understand?
Can you just bring up my presentation? I'm going to bring up the last page again with my contact information.
Great.
So if anything comes up.
Yeah. Can I ask, will this presentation be posted? This presentation will be posted, yes? I think that would be helpful.
And again, here's my contact information. So.
Clark, you have a question.
Hi. Yeah, I was just pondering Mr. Malone's comment on transcript from the BCRC Energy Committee. My question is, will that, maybe to Mr. Malone, I'd asked earlier for information on what's different with this filing now versus a previous one. Is that going to be represented or part of the discriminator as to what's new versus what's old in your presentations?
Are you asking if that's part of the filing?
Right. Right. You said, we're here to see what's new, what has been generated as a result, resulting in your new filing. I just know if that commentary on discussions with the BCRC will in fact be part of that information, or.
Michael, do we have that that breakdown as part of the filing?
Well, I guess there's two parts to that question, I think. One is the information regarding the BCRC presentation part of the new filing? Yes, the whole transcript of that meeting is an exhibit that you could find on there. And I think the second part of the question was, are the differences between the last iterations of these projects part of the project description in the latest dockets? And yes, that is really for informational purposes, because that's oftentimes the first question that people have. Well, okay, what's new? And so we do include that information just to satisfy those questions, but it's really important, I think, to focus on what's in front of you, this iteration of the project, and how it satisfies the current town plan, the current state laws, the current PUC rules. To look back at previous iterations of these projects going back, a decade plus, I don't think it's going to be helpful. It's all there. There's nothing hidden. You're certainly welcome to do it. But I think you just lose sight of the fact of what's currently before you. So obviously take that for what it's worth. That's just my opinion. But I think you can get tripped up in trying to make comparisons as to what happened before. As far as the parameters of the project, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me when what's before the PUC is kind of what you need to be focused on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wallen, but I was under the distinct impression what we were doing here at this meeting was gathering information to explain what is going on here and now versus what has been presented in the past and previously discounted by the PUC or the Supreme Court. That's my main question is, I would just like to know what's different. And if you have more information, I'm all about it.
Narrow in, and I appreciate the question. If you really, really want to narrow in on the focus, especially with respect to Apple Hill, because that was the one that was denied on aesthetics and orderly development. The difference is, one, as I mentioned, the town plan has changed. Two, the project footprint is smaller. Three, the design of the project footprint has changed to take advantage of the retained vegetation. Four, and I know I sound like a broken record, but the fence is awfully important in this project because, and that's why you see a picture of the fence in the presentation tonight. We had a black fence, a black mesh fence, or I guess it was a chain link fence covered with black mesh in the last iteration, going back, many, many years, which we thought at the time was the right way to screen this project. It turns out we were wrong, and that's what the Vermont Supreme Court focused on when they denied the project on aesthetics. They said you can see this fence from the Welcome Center, and that is why we are denying this project. So obviously, that was the first thing to go. We got rid of that black box fence, and we made some other changes. by looking at exactly what was problematic and getting rid of it.
Well, thank you.
Great. You have another question?
It's a follow-up and a confirmation, and it follows on what Clark and Mr. Millen were just speaking of. So I want to go back again to simplifying it for myself to understand it. We are responsible for the adherence to and defense of the town plan, and the aesthetics were the issue. And the opinion of the developer is that the current project plans meet the town plan as it relates to aesthetics. I think that's the issue that this board has to grapple with. That's my opinion on it. And if the developer agrees, then the question is, do we have enough information to confirm that the project does or does not meet the town plan in this board's opinion? And that's the only issue that's up in the air. We've already heard that the developer believes it does, and does the plan show that? And that's what I think this board needs to get at. I'm trying to simplify it, a very complicated issue, but I'm trying to get to what I think the bottom line responsibility is of this board.
Again, I had mentioned during the presentation that we feel that we meet the definition for a preferred area based on the hedgerow, the vegetation, the topography. This will be screened, and we believe that definition alone is what qualifies this site as preferred. And I apologize if I confuse things trying to explain what updated from site plan to site plan, but I thought it was important to understand that we did try to take into consideration the abutters' concerns about cutting into that slope and why we moved it south and why Apple Hill shrunk even a little bit more. So I apologize if I confused anybody, but I was trying to explain, how we got to where we are.
I just want to tell you that you did not add to my confusion. I came in with plenty, and it's starting to clear up. If you find that, those are my parting words of comfort.
Yeah. All right, so that's a very good note. Are there other questions? Yes, Michael. Probably not a question.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, because, and I agree that the preferred site area question under the town plan is of maximum importance. And it's already one that was looked at by your planning commission, and they made a recommendation previously that no, because you are altering the site, it doesn't meet that criteria under our town plan. And so not only do you have to, consider if that is an accurate conclusion, which we obviously disagree with, but you have to think about what are the practical ramifications of agreeing with the Planning Commission on that point. If you agree with them, you are then limiting solar development in Bennington to open, previously cleared farmland, which is obviously problematic in the context of your renewable energy goals and the county's renewable energy goals. You're really hamstringing yourself on what can be developed in the future. It's not a practical application of that particular provision of the town plan. So just another little wrinkle and another consideration for you guys to think about.
Thank you. I find that helpful. Thank you.
Yes, Dan, I'd like for you to come and address that.
I just want to respond. I think Michael may have interpreted the Planning Commission's recommendation a little bit too stringently, and what they were clearly opposed to was the change in the topography. There was not really significant discussion about the removal of the tree. So I think to their credit, the projects before us do not involve significant changes in existing topography. So perhaps Michael took it as an even more restrictive recommendation than it was.
Thank you.
And we have not seen anything from the Planning Commission on this, yes, so, right.
Good point.
All right. Any other questions, comments before we thank everyone? You're wanting?
Of course, Dan is here. Who else from the Planning Commission is in the crowd, or I hope they're out there watching?
So, yes, they're aware of this meeting. Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's not a planning commission meeting, so they won't be able to comment.
No, I anticipate discussions. And I'm just hoping they're on board with what's been said here, because it's been like drinking out of a water hose.
There were some Planning Commission members here earlier that I think had to leave, but this will be recorded, so. Any other questions, comments? All right, so I'm going to thank you very, very much for taking 2 hours out of your evening to talk with us and being very patient and
thank you.
Responding over and over again to some of our questions.
No, thank you. I'm on one of my town's commissions, and I understand volunteers and all that, the effort that goes into it. So thank you very much for setting up this special meeting. Much appreciated.
Your time is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, a first and a second. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all.